We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and now in Albuquerque, New Mexico on 1000 KKIM. Our guest by phone, an author who wrote a book a couple years ago that I highly, highly, highly recommend if you're a sports fan. Sound and Fury, story of two powerful lives and one faithful friendship, the story of Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell. So, Dave, a couple of fights in particular. You were talking about how fast Ali was. I remember, I had to be 15 or 16, and he fought Ernie Terrell, who was pretty close to Foreman size. And Ali was in his prime. And I remember him standing in the corner of the ring, and Terrell being so frustrated because he kept on punching Ali in the face, and Ali just did that head bop of his, and Terrell couldn't lay a glove on him. It was the most incredible and fastest performance I have ever seen. And from
that's what I was talking about,
yeah.
Marty, the difference between Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali. Ernie Terrell was a workmanlike kind of journeyman fighter from Chicago, was not really that good. And that was at a time in Ali's life when Ali was a virulent black Muslim, when he was a virulent racist, really. And he insisted that Ernie Terrell call him Ali. Terrell insisted on calling him Clay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And Ali made a point in that fight of embarrassing Terrell at every opportunity. And that was one of them. I mean, he made him look like a fool because you couldn't hit him. He dared you to hit him. Ali got hit more in sparring sessions in the gym getting ready for fights than he ever did in actual fights. He took punishment in sparring because he thought it made him tougher. But the Terrell thing was a nasty event in which Ali was, probably at his cruelest. One of the times that he was very cruel.
Well, the other time would have been with Floyd Patterson, where he kept on taunting Patterson, saying, what's my name?
This was in the same period of time. Yeah. It was when he was still enthralled. Ali was still enthralled to Elijah Muhammad, and was very much controlled, at least thought controlled, by the black Muslim cult. And so, and that was another, Patterson wanted to. Ali created dramas in every fight, and more often than not, Ali created dramas black against white, and somehow he would transform African American fighters into white men, so as to make them look bad. And Floyd Patterson was the first of those. He later did it to Frazier in the Thrilla in Manila. Again, one of the cruelest things that Ali ever did. But yeah, Patterson, he taunted him. I remember Bob Lipsyte. I wasn't there for that fight. That was before my time. But Lipsyte was there for the New York Times, and he said it was like picking the wings off a butterfly, because Patterson had a bad back, and Ali just tortured him for 12 rounds.
Going back to Cosell and Ali, Cosell, to his credit, backed Ali during the, when he refused to be inducted and with his change over to the Muslim faith. Did Cosell take a gamble with that in his career? Because that wasn't the most popular position at that time.
I think he did, but again, that was part of ABC being, number 3, way behind number 2. And it was also Cosell's kind of persona to take on unpopular stands and try to defend them. But the fact is that Cosell, all Cosell did, really, and it was very smart of him, he never took Ali's positions. He never agreed that the Vietnam War was a mistake. He never agreed that Islam was the religion that a man should follow. He never agreed, really, with any of Ali's stances. What he did was defend Ali's right to have those stances. And there's certainly a lot of people in America at that time that thought that Ali was completely out of place in thinking the way he did. What Cosell did was say every man has a right to be who he wants to be. And but at the same time, he never, he never took up the cudgel on Ali's behalf in agreeing with any of those stances. He just said that Ali had the right to those stances, and he did. Yeah. And so, but even that took some courage, certainly in a corporate world. Even then, you couldn't antagonize the advertisers and stay on the air very long.
Especially in the 60s.
Yes. Especially, it was the most turbulent time, certainly, that I ever lived through, the 60s, and Ali and Cosell were fully representative of the times. It was a time of tumult, and it was a time of outrage, and they were in the middle of all of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we learn early on in public life, you don't talk about race, religion, or politics. Well, those two guys talked about race, religion, and politics all the time.
Yeah, this is true. We're having a conversation with Dave Kindred, author of a phenomenal book, Sound and Fury, Two Powerful Lives, One Faithful Friendship, the story of Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell.
Dave, Howard was known, I guess, as a successful attorney. Why did he decide to get into the broadcasting business?
Well, he had always wanted to be a broadcaster, and he became a lawyer just kind of by default because he couldn't get a job in New York as a broadcaster. He couldn't get into radio because he was Jewish, and because he sounded Jewish, and because he reveled in his Jewishness at a time when broadcasting accepted only the golden tones, only the neutral sounding. And while the business, even in New York, or especially in New York maybe, was run by Jews, they didn't want the Jewish sound on the air. And Cosell, when he would do an audition, he couldn't probably disguise that voice. And so the voice, that inhibited him at the start, later became the thing that made him, famous. I mean, everyone, even Ali, did Howard Cosell impressions. So it served him well in the end. But at the start, there was just a bigotry against Jews, and that held him back. But he always he'd grown up as a Brooklyn Dodger fan, grown up listening to Red Barber do Dodger games on the radio. Sports was always in his heart, from Jackie Robinson on. So it was something that he loved. He'd grown up as a kid playing stickball in Brooklyn. He wanted to be in sports, and going to law school was just a way of because he was bright, photographic memory, didn't really study, passed the bar without even looking at it. But he always wanted to be the broadcaster. Finally gave up the law and worked for, I think, $25 a week as a broadcaster just to get into the business.
I've always enjoyed the interaction between Cosell and Ali. I thought that was always as entertaining as the fight was.
Yeah, definitely.
Always was.
Yeah. One of the most famous moments in sports is when Cosell was broadcasting the Frazier-Foreman fight, and it's funny because you listen to Foreman talk about it afterwards. He said he was afraid of Frazier, but when you look at that fight, he just pounded the you-know-what out of Frazier. And I remember Cosell yelling, "Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!" I think that.
Well, if you've seen, perhaps it's on YouTube, but if you've seen, there was a broadcast of, I don't know if it was a documentary of Cosell. It may have been. You see him at ringside making that call. Mm-hmm. You see his hands shaking as he's holding the microphone. You see him almost rising off his seat when he's making that call. And it was a thrilling piece of film that showed Cosell's absolute fascination with the game of boxing, with broadcasting, with performance. Now you've heard that phrase, "Down goes Frazier." You've heard it applied a million times in a million different situations. "Down goes Romney." You've heard it 100 times. It was a great moment for Howard, and basically Howard was thrilled because he had picked Foreman to win the fight.
Yeah.
And then there was Foreman doing it for him right in front of his eyes.
Well, there's something on YouTube that's hilarious. It's called Ali and Cosell, and it's 1 minute and 21 seconds long. And it's funny because I remember the commentary that Cosell did talking about the fact that there was no way Ali was going to beat Foreman. He was real sad about the fact that Ali was going to have to retire. And in this little skit, they break it up into like 20-minute segments, and 20-second segments. Every 20 seconds, they've got Ali coming and saying a comical, derogatory comment about Cosell, and it's hilarious. But
well, one piece of that, I think, that I remember was Ali saying, "Cosell, you're a phony, and that thing on your head comes from the tail of a pony."
Yes, that was the last line. Yeah, yeah. And then then another line was Ali said, Cosell, you said I'm not the man I was 10 years ago. I talked to your wife, and she said you're not the man you were 2 years ago.
Well, another famous one where Cosell says, "Muhammad, you're being very truculent today."
Oh, that's
and
right.
Ali says, "I don't know what truculent means, but if it's good, yes, I am."
That's right. Well, we've got about 35, 40 seconds left. What other projects do you have going on, David? Anything we need to keep
I'm
our...
writing now for a new website, sportsonearth.com. It's a new website. It's a partnership of Major League Baseball, Advanced Media, and USA Today Media. Kind of traditional columnist writing about sports is very good. I've enjoyed doing that. Teaching at Illinois Wesleyan and at Bradley University, and so I'm staying busy that way and trying to dream up a new book. If you have any ideas to spare, let me know.
I may just call you on one that I have.
Write about Ray Romano.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Dave, thank you for the time. And again, I highly, highly recommend the book, Sound and Fury, the story of Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell.
Well, I love doing the book. It was one that I had to do, and I think I tell Ali's story certainly better than anybody else has. And Cosell's story, no one's ever wanted to write it. I begged to write it, and it's good, too. Thank you.
That's a great joke. Thank you, Dave. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180.